Good morning, everyone. I am Lucy Dunn, President and CEO of the Orange County Business Council and your MC for today's event. And while we're waiting for folks to join us just a minute or so, we have a quick poll for you all that we're going to reference later in the program. The answers are anonymous, but we would really appreciate your participation. So take our quick poll while we're waiting for folks to join us. For those just joining us, we're doing a quick poll on working from home. Feel free to fill it out while we're just waiting for people to come on board. We're going to use this poll as part of our presentation. All right. Welcome, Cal State Fullerton. Welcome, Boeing. All right, very good. Looks like we've got most of the answers to the poll in. Thank you for providing those answers. And once again, for our newly joined participants, I'm Lucy Dunn, President and CEO of the Orange County Business Council, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the rollout of the 2021-22 Orange County Community Indicators. This report presents critical insight into the impacts of COVID-19 locally and explores the current state of economic well-being, housing, healthcare, digital equity, childcare, and more in Orange County. Currently in its 21st year of publication, our report is a collaboration among key stakeholders, including the Orange County Business Council. Our partners are First Five of Orange County United Way, Cal Optima, and the Orange County Community Foundation. We have a packed program for you this morning, and so let me give you a little bit of the roadmap. You'll not only receive first a brief overview of the findings released in this year's report from Dr. Wallace Walrod, but you're also going to hear from expert panelists who will discuss a broad range of issues presented in the report, from the impact of COVID on children and healthcare to ongoing struggles with housing, digital access, and ways we can all come together to celebrate Orange County's strengths, but also work on those solutions to ongoing problems. Before we get to the numbers and trends uncovered by Dr. Walrod and his team, we must first acknowledge Amazon, our title sponsor. Thank you, Amazon, for your generous support of this event and commitment to Orange County. And I also want to acknowledge our other sponsors supporting our rollout. Platinum sponsor, Ontario International Airport. Our gold sponsors, AT&T, California State University Fullerton, Go Titans, City of Hope, Orange County, Goodwill of Orange County Department of Education, SoCal Gas, our silver partners, sponsors, Brookfield Properties, Cox Communications, SDG&E, and Spectrum. Following our webinar, you will receive a digital copy of the 2021-22 Orange County Community Indicators via email. And I want you to feel free to share it broadly. It is shareware. I think the information in this report is so important that we viral and teach our fellow residents and workers in Orange County about this amazing place in which we live, work, and play. And one more shout out to our community indicators stakeholders, those colleagues of mine that really helped pull all this together. Thank you again, Cal Optima, First 5 Orange County Community Foundation, and United Way of Orange County United Way. Awesome colleagues and partners that are making Orange County better every single day. Working with our team at OCBC, we're pleased to get this out to you. Now, a little bit on housekeeping. We may have some time for Q&A from our attendees after the first panel discussion, and then maybe a little bit after the second panel. So direct your questions as they come up into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We'll do our best to get through as many questions as we can, and maybe even be able, because we're recording this event, we might be able to get answers to you after the event. So now, before we begin, it's my pleasure to present a quick video from our title sponsor, Amazon. Amazon is excited to partner with all of you to ensure that Orange County students are prepared for the careers of today and tomorrow. Roll tape.
Holy cow, we got it?
If we got it, you got it. This is you. Thank you for all you
so
do.
Great for the school.
This year was so difficult.
I had to adapt everything to a virtual model, which was not easy.
I asked Amazon if they could help me. I applied for a scholarship and they said yes.
Your generous donations help schools show that coding and robotics is for all.
Amazon Future Engineer Teacher of the Year.
I made a virtual makerspace filled with all sorts of at-home projects, simulations, virtual tours, coding drills, you name it.
And it really helped me to know each student so much better.
Amazon, you continue to invest in the underserved and underrepresented population throughout this country.
Hi, my name is Chris Haddon.
Melissa Collins.
Cesar Barreto,
I am an Amazon Future Engineer
Teacher of the Year.
Woo!
Thank you all. I love each and every one of you.
Awesome. Thank you, Amazon. What a terrific video. And I love their commitment to education, workforce development. It is an amazing sponsorship we have in them and community support from them. All right, once again, the roadmap for our late joiners. We're going to do an overview of the report from Dr. Wallace Walrod. We're going to listen to a little panel discussion with some good Q&A from them. Might have some time to take a few questions from you. Then we're going to move into a community panel from our colleagues that helped pull this report together, and maybe a little bit more time from Q&A. So without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, the researcher, Dr. Wallace Walrod, our Chief Economic Advisor to Orange County Business Council. He has led strategic projects with numerous organizations, including Toshiba America Information Systems, Hitachi Chemical, Merrill Lynch, the Irvine Company, Bank of America, and many, many others. He will present the findings of his research, highlight some of those key issues and trends, and then he will lead a panel today of our experts Let me give you a few introductions here. You're going to be able to find extended bios in the event program that's linked in the chat. So go into the chat, take a look at that program. By the way, that program is really good. So pull that up and just kind of flip through it. But brief bios from our panelists. Jeff Montahano serves as the CEO of the Building Industry Association of Southern California, one of the largest building associations in the United States. His tenure includes several advocacy victories for the region's largest landowners, home builders, and contractors based on his effective advocacy strategies. Jeff is a game changer. When Jeff is successful, we all in our community benefit because we get housing, which is one of our top issues, right, forever. Christine Olmsted, Associate Superintendent, Educational Services, Orange County Department of Education, another one of our great panelists, has spent over 25 years serving the K through 12 education sector, starting as an instructional classroom assistant to now serving as the Associate Superintendent of Educational Services and Interim Chief Academic Officer for the Orange County Department of Education. Welcome aboard, Christine. And finally, Colleen Dillaway, Director, Public Affairs, Cox Communications. In this role, Colleen has responsibility for community affairs, public relations, and employee communications for the company's California market, which consists of 1,700 employees and nearly 1 million customers across Orange County, Palos Verdes, San Diego, and Santa Barbara. So with these great panelists and Dr. Walrod at the lead, Wallace, take it away.
Thanks so much, Lucy. Good morning, everyone. It's my great pleasure to walk you through these slides today and discuss their report trends with this great panel we have this morning. As Lucy said, we started doing the report in 1999. You can see the depth and breadth of the wide variety of topics we cover in the report, which clocks in this year at 150 pages. This year's report also includes 2 special sections, one on how COVID has impacted the future of work and Orange County demographics, and second, the impacts of remote work on housing. Our slides today cover the Orange County profile, and then we move to housing, education, and digital and broadband. One of the key reasons we do the report is to better tell Orange County's story, dispelling myths and educating folks about Orange County, the true Orange County, to both inside and outside audiences. Well, demographics play a crucial part in our story. Following the same trends as the state and nation, Orange County's population is becoming increasingly older, and we'll explore that in depth. We're just doing that more rapidly than the state and nation. Since 2000, Orange County residents aged 45 and over increased by nearly 70%, while residents 19 and younger have declined by 8%. Notice Orange County's underperformance compared to the state in the key 25 to 34 and 35 to 44-year-old age groups. This has implications. We also lose the children that they would have had if they stayed at Orange County, and that means declining school enrollments result. And there are other implications for labor markets, talent pipelines, and housing. Net migration out of California surged in the mid-2000s as home prices increased dramatically during the housing bubble. In fact, this trend has a near perfect correlation with housing prices. After the bubble burst and housing prices plummeted, so did outmigration from the state as homes once again became more affordable. Outmigration began to grow again as home prices increased. And as you see in the next slide, outmigration has continued during the pandemic. In the fourth quarter of 2020, Orange County saw over 8,000 people leave. That's the net of people leaving Orange County and moving in. Slightly less than San Diego. Overall, we lost actually in total 25,000 residents in 2020. First year it's happened, certainly in my lifetime, but maybe forever. LA County lost just under 100,000, but this seems to be accelerating in LA County. If you annualize these fourth quarter numbers, that would make it over 200,000 per year. And the shift from areas in California with high costs of living to more affordable regions looks like it will continue. Orange County has the highest housing and population density in Southern California and was second only to San Francisco in California. In order to meet demand, housing density will almost certainly continue to climb. This means that it's time to update the historic perception of Orange County as a bedroom community of LA. While this was the case at one point in time, it's simply no longer true. Orange County had the highest median income in the Southern California region and lowest poverty amongst these peer counties. However, we do realize these poverty numbers are based on national standards, and we know that Orange County is more expensive. You can see commute times are doing comparatively well, by the way, and we'll talk more about Orange County's diversity in subsequent slides. The region is also very highly educated. This highly educated population and skilled workforce are strong foundations for further economic recovery and prosperity. Orange County has the second highest foreign-born population in Southern California, almost 30%, a huge asset for our county. As you can see, Mexico, Vietnam, China, Korea, and the Philippines are the most common countries of origin. And Orange County is predominantly a small and medium-sized company market. While we have many large employers, small business employing under 50 accounts for 96% of all the businesses in the region. And finally, for this section, Orange County continues to do well in crime stats with a crime index of 82 compared to the national average of 100 and the California average of 107. In fact, only San Diego is better than us as a major metro area on this standard. And Orange County's assault crime index, a subsector of the broader crime index, is even better with a score of 52, meaning it's about half the national average. Public safety is a main reason why there is such high demand for companies to locate here and for residents to live in Orange County. So now it's my pleasure to ask the panel to weigh in on some of the things they've seen. And I was thinking I'd start off with you, Colleen, if that's okay.
Might as well. Let's get right into it.
Let's do it. In light of what you've just seen and in reading through the report, what struck you as the most important positive trend facing Orange County? And what was the most alarming?
I mean this in all sincerity and honesty when I say, so I got a sneak peek at the whole 150-page report. There's a lot of information in there, and some of it is dense. But one of the things that jumped right out at me was that between 2019 and the first half of 2020, commute times in Orange County dropped. Now, I think we know why, but the numbers really spoke to me. So it dropped from 4 hours in the AM to 7 hours, from 7 hours to 2 hours in the PM. That's remarkable. I think A, it's good for the environment, and B, it's good for kind of work-life balance. One of the things we have noticed in my industry, which is telecommunications, a lot of people, of course, began working from home in 2020, and I think we saw that reflected in the poll as well. So I think the commute times dropping reflects very much what happened in Orange County as well as the rest of the country last year. But man, when you look at those numbers, it speaks volumes, because it really talks to what people were experiencing in their own homes and in their own cars. So I think that's a positive. That's one that strikes me as a positive. And then I think for me, the most alarming, childcare needs. In the report, I noticed that 66% of people working outside the home changed their childcare last year due to COVID-19. And even more plan to change their childcare in the coming year. And I also noticed that 40% of childcare centers surveyed believe they will close permanently without additional public assistance. That's remarkable, especially if you are a working professional that have child age or school age children in the home. I am a working mom. I have school age children. Thankfully, they're 14 and 17, so I can pretty much close my door and let them do their thing. I do not any longer have to pay for childcare, but I did for a very long time. And I know that that's an important part of the business environment, if you will. And if we take away those care opportunities, that childcare, it drastically affects the working world. So those are some things that struck me as very important.
Thanks, Colleen. Christine, same question. What was the most positive trend you saw and what was the most alarming?
For me, looking at it kind of through the education lens, the graduation rates and closing the achievement gap with our socioeconomically disadvantaged populations is really promising. I know our districts have done a lot of work in that area to make sure that all students, regardless of what their background is, are treated the same and given equal opportunities. So it's great to see that that's paying off. I think the most alarming trend I saw, and it's kind of probably a little bit in alignment with Colleen, but not only, you know, the opportunity for childcare, but those who attend childcare and don't, the alarming difference between kindergarten readiness between North OC and South OC. Really needing to do more work in that area. I know we work a lot with First Five and we have great plans in place for moving that forward. But we really need to pay attention to that and see how we can get into our communities to make sure that students are getting that early start, because we know that the gap starts in kindergarten if students have not had that opportunity in the early years.
Great, thank you. How about you, Jeff?
Thanks, Wallace, and thanks, Lucy. I just want to give you guys a quick shout out. You know, during this pandemic, you know, we went through a lot, and kudos to OCBC. You guys did an amazing job. The resilience was amazing. We had a lot of struggles during that time, and you guys played a key role for our industry. So I just wanted to thank you. In regards to the report, gosh, a lot of things stick out. I think the most important positive aspect of it is that Orange County is still a very desirable place to live. It also validates that home buying is probably the hottest market we've seen in decades, and consumers, their intense focus on buying a home is prevalent. And the report justifies that all housing is essential. And so I think the most alarming aspect of it, though, was the pandemic disproportionately benefited a certain segment of the population and people with large financial means, and where lower income buyers were priced out. And so the American dream of home ownership, you know, for lower income starter families, young professionals, that gets, you know, that's outlined in the report, has always been historically a struggle, but somewhat attainable. Now we're starting to see that aspect become near impossible or unattainable for the middle class. And so the job classifications, their income versus their ability to purchase a home was alarming. 30% of the residents are considered you know, cost burden for housing. That's a very high number. In some other parts of the state, it's 40%. So the housing wage numbers that were half of the common occupations, less likely the chance of buying a home, was also alarming. That growing mismatch, Wallace, as you characterize it, for first-time home buyers failing to qualify, that's also alarming. And so from a home building perspective, you know, this is not a new trend to Orange County or to our country or to California. I think there were lessons learned from the last housing boom and fizzle, and you know, it's not the same though. And the creative mortgage financing, all those things have kind of gone out the window on this go around. But the price of homes are just really too high, and that attainability is something that the state has acknowledged at least, but is failing to solve and to work with local government. And so, and I'm not talking about low-income subsidized housing, which I think is essential. And I think a lot of those folks have made some big strides in that aspect. But I'm talking about the market rate housing that we're under intense scrutiny in terms of project approvals, litigation, some out-of-touch zone mandates, you know, all which contribute to that higher price point, which we want to make it more affordable and adjusted appropriately. So those are the things that stood out for me initially in the report.
Great, thanks so much, Jeff. One of the things Lucy's fond of talking about is the report kind of dispels the myth of Orange County as a bedroom community of LA. Do we need to update that perception of Orange County as just a suburb of Los Angeles? And how would you see us getting the word out on that particular topic? And maybe I'll start with Christine this time.
You know, I think it does matter that we get that message out that we're not a bedroom community of LA. I think the report showing that 47% of our population speaks a language other than English shows the diversity of our community greatly. And I think, you know, the perceptions people have just by seeing OC on the TV is not what we live in Orange County. And I think we have a very, very diverse community that we live in, and I think that needs to be celebrated. We see it in our schools, and I think continuing to honor all the identities that are here with us are really important, and it makes us unique in Orange County because of that.
Thank you. How about Colleen?
I really appreciate what Christine had mentioned about the diversity in Orange County. My thoughts along this line veer towards remote work and hybrid work being more a part of our reality in the last 18 months, if you will. I think with remote and hybrid work becoming more of a permanent part of our work culture, I think location-based working is changing, whatever that looks like, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health. I don't know what it's going to look like in the next 2 months, 12 months, or even 24 months, but I think that locations like LA will be less and less tied to work. So bedroom communities, that language, I think it'll become more and more antiquated over time, more of an antiquated idea without a whole lot of branding work on our part. I think that there are very many things that communities like Orange County offer. And I think over time, and as location-based working becomes less and less the pivotal part of how we work, places like Orange County will become kind of more and more a place where everybody wants to be.
Great point. Love to hear that. And how about you, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it needs to be rebranded, politically. We saw in the RENA allocation, massive shift of housing units from the Inland Empire in Los Angeles to Orange County because of that perception. And now based on those units, we have to build high density housing in OC coastal areas, which makes no sense unless we want to look like Miami Beach. This report, I think OC has done a good job of diversifying its housing composition over the decades. This report validates that point, but the perception has not changed. And perhaps maybe, the BIAs and the OC COGs, maybe we need to do a continuum study based off of this, because Sacramento still has this perception about Orange County that needs to change. And unfortunately, the master plan communities get the lion's share of the attention, but that's not all what's going on. I think there needs to be more of an education with the electeds, which we would certainly like to collaborate on.
Good point. Good point. Final question before we move to the next section. The report drills down on COVID and its impacts on workplaces, housing markets, and demographic trends. What was the biggest lesson either you individually or your industry learned during the pandemic? And how do you think you will apply this lesson to the post-pandemic world going forward? How about Colleen?
I love going first. It's my favorite thing. So lesson, there was a lot of lessons that my industry and myself personally learned in the past, let's say 18 months. One of the ones that rises to the top continuously for the industry and for my company and for myself is that network investment really is future proofing. It's never been enough to just build a network, the infrastructure that the data and the internet rides on. Maintenance and upgrades are elemental to guaranteeing the success. So the network is there when people need it, because you can never guess when a pandemic will hit and people leave their schools and their offices and need online connections at home that allow them to do all those things that they used to do at school and they used to do in their offices. We saw last year, they all went home and wanted to do all of that connectivity from their homes. So in 2019, we saw, 2020, which was last year, gosh, time, we saw 2 years worth of network growth in 2 months. And our network utilization went up drastically, and we had to work to keep pace, but we did a good job because we had a good investment in the network previously. So we know that we will never stop investing in the network. It is a constant part of what we do because the infrastructure that we have built is state-of-the-art, but state-of-the-art changes on a day-to-day basis. So it's never good enough to just build it. We have to maintain it. We have to upgrade it. That was a lesson we already knew, but became much more a part of our everyday life. And everybody, not only in our industry, but in the communities we serve, realized that how very important it is to have that connectivity and have it be reliable. So that was one of the lessons that kind of rose to the top for us.
Right. How about you, Jeff?
It changed everything for us. I mean, this was a game changer. The housing market, has been severely influenced by the pandemic in the most unpredictable way. And it was, call it a newfound uncertainty. It was very bizarre how this happened and how people coped with the pandemic, which we'd never been through. I think builders, we got worried very quickly, and we had some nightmare revisits from back in 2009, and workforces were being laid off by 20% across the board. It was like Jaws 2. We heard the music, but the shark never came. And then quickly overnight, people started buying homes. People started buying homes online. As kids were on Zoom, people were calling the iBuyers now. They were going on and buying homes, new homes that they haven't even been in. So we saw major shifts in consumer behavior. And a lot of folks, what you're seeing is this massive exodus to less expensive housing. I think a lot of folks, we built homes, our builders built homes on this live, work, and play model, but no one anticipated, and that's based on the proximity going down the escalator to work. But no one thought about live, work, and play in your home and staying in your home. And that really changed people's behavior. They changed it in terms of, do I want to live here still? Do I want to move? Do I want more space? We saw cultural changes in the millennial buyers who wanted to live, in a downtown area, and now they wanted to have more space. So the remote work aspect, a huge game changer for us. The jury's still out on how long that will continue, and our builders are adjusting and designing homes to accommodate that remote workspace. And so it's very interesting to see, and it was a game changer for us, and it's a game changer for our builders' employees. So the folks, the telecommuting aspect is always, I think it's going to be permanently ingrained for our builders. But we did identify that a lot of our workforce though works outside, and so they were unaffected by that, and so that's also a good thing. So it's a very interesting crux that we're in right now, and look forward to discussing it more as it evolves.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jeff. And we'll talk a little bit more about housing in the next section. Finally, Christine.
For the education sector, really ensuring that students' basic needs were met was huge during COVID. Pivoting and going out in March of 2019 now, really shed light on which students really needed that support that schools provide. We have food insecurity going on, housing insecurity happening, and what it really made us do as educators is really look to make sure what we call we Maslow before we bloom, right? So we make sure basic needs are taken care of, and then within education, you have Bloom's taxonomy that looks at different levels of information that students can take in at one time. So really looking at the mental health and social emotional needs of our students, as well as our educators that are teaching every day, and our support staff that support our students on a regular basis. We focus in Orange County on building what's called a multi-tiered system of support, where we make sure that all students are included every period, every day. We ensure that students are known by their name, face, and story. So when we get to know the stories of our students and their families, we can provide better supports for them. I think the other thing we saw in education was just an immediate need to integrate technology in new ways. Some of our teachers did that amazingly, and others, had to kind of learn it overnight. And they've continued to implement what they've learned into their face-to-face classrooms this year. And so I think another thing that we saw was the use of technology. We can engage our families better. And so we are hearing from our school sites that they will continue to use Zoom and other means to engage families rather than just having to have everything be on campus all the time. So there were some really great positive outcomes that came out of this, really making sure we're attuned to our students' social emotional learning needs as well as mental health. And then that family engagement piece we can do through technology was really helpful.
Great. Thanks so much. Great comments. But let's move to the next section. Housing, it's in the headlines every day. We've already talked quite a bit about it. No secret, it's been on fire. Despite this worldwide economic recession, we hit new highs. Orange County's 34% greater than the state average. Since 2011, home prices have increased by 98% in Orange County. Shows what a great investment it has been for a lot of people. Over the past year, San Bernardino, followed by Orange County and Riverside, saw prices increase the most. Home prices are expected to continue to increase for a multitude of reasons. Low interest rates, high demand, but probably most importantly, low supply. This is Lucy's favorite slide. It demonstrates conclusively that we are just not building enough workforce housing in California. The state remains significantly below the 180,000 units needed annually to keep up with housing demand. And as Jeff, as you said, this is really eye-opening when you compare the wages needed to afford to buy that first home. It tells the true impact. You have to earn almost $125,000 to afford that entry-level priced home of $850 in Orange County. So this is even the case for occupations such as biomedical engineers, computer programmers, registered nurses, and software developers. As Jeff said, too many people are paying too much for housing as a percent of their income. 30% is the traditional rule of thumb, but it's been disproportionate so far. And then apartments as well. The wage needed to afford a one-bedroom apartment is $36 an hour. That's 17% above LA, 70% above the Inland Empire. We're only topped by, amongst our peers, Boston, San Jose, and San Francisco. Here's how it's grown in the last, since 2015, 6% in the last year and 47% since 2015. And in fact, renters making under $75,000 also tend to pay well over 30% of their income in housing costs. In fact, due to the impact of low interest rates on monthly mortgage payments, in a lot of cases, renting is as expensive, if not more expensive, than home ownership. And similar to homeowners, this limits the renter's ability to afford things like saving for a down payment or emergency funds, and often puts them at greater financial risk. So we'd like to, I'll probably combine these questions. How do you, these demographic trends, how do you see that impacting Orange County, and is there housing policy that can address that? And also, what do you think are the major advantages and disadvantages of this strong housing market, and how sustainable is it? And so for this, I'm going to call on Jeff first.
Thanks, Wallace. Yeah, the demographic stats are alarming and always trending that way. I think for us to really to help that segment of the population is we just need the opportunity to build more, and housing attainability for younger people or families can be achieved if builders have some certainty. And right now that uncertainty has greatly dissipated and trending the wrong way. Our projects are being denied, appealed, they're being litigated, and it takes years, if not decades, for entitlement. So low supply equals low housing opportunities. And so letting us build in a timely manner is one aspect of it. We have 55 and older communities. I mean, do we have to have 35 and older communities now? I mean, do we really have to go to that level to ensure that somebody has an attainable home? So that missing middle that's impacting the workforce will continue. And we look at it as, if just let us build more, let us litigate less, I think that everybody can have that home. And the one thing that really affects us on those demographics as it relates to cost, the state wants us to build in infill areas where neighborhoods don't want housing. I mean, that's just how it is. I don't blame the local elected officials. They want us to put them in neighborhoods and on some expensive dirt, and they want us to build up, and that costs a lot of money. So for us builders, old school vacant land is best for us. If you want it fast and affordable, we can take a map out right now, mark up where the land is available, and we can build it quick and it can be cheap. But that's not what the state wants right now. They want to take people off the freeways, which we think telecommuting is doing, and that's not being addressed as well, but that's a whole other segment. But that's where we're at on the demographics. It's not just going to be this population. If this thing continues, that demographic is going to expand and expand and expand and expand to all of us. So
absolutely. Thank you. That's perfect. Colleen or Christine, do you want to weigh in on this?
I think Jeff is really the resident expert when it comes to kind of demographic trends and what that does to housing. I would say this demographic really wants connectivity. And so, what we're doing our part to make sure that we're building gig to every home. So there can be, 20 devices in the home. You know, you've got your iPads, you've got your Kindles, you've got your smart refrigerators, all of those things. You need to make the community has to be as attractive as possible. And kind of we're doing our part to make sure that we're future proofing so that when people are here, they want to stay here because they don't need to go someplace else to look for those things that they need.
Great, thank you. Christine, quick thought?
I would agree with Jeff. I mean, the more opportunities we have to build affordable housing, you know, teachers can't really afford houses in Orange County based on their salary. And so anything we can do to create opportunities for more people to work where they live. And it also goes to the fact that many of our families have to double up or triple up in homes in Orange County. And so just being able to provide more housing that's at affordable rates will definitely help our community.
Great, thank you. So it's time to move on to education. Just a note regarding the data in this year's report, due to school closures, many traditional tests that were administered were either postponed or canceled. So we'll try to pick those up next year. I did want to start off with another slide about how diverse Orange County is. This is a measure by the US Census Bureau, and it measures the likelihood of 2 randomly chosen residents coming from different racial or ethnic groups. And dispelling another myth, Orange County is the most diverse county in Southern California and the 9th most diverse in California. Okay, next slide. Also, kindergarten readiness is a big issue. Latino kindergartners are much less likely to be ready. On the other hand, Asian students are 26% more likely. This is a major issue because kindergarten is where children build the foundations of future academic success, and a lack of kindergarten readiness could have long-term negative ripple effects. And here you can see what that looks like geographically. Students located in the more central portions of the county are less likely to be ready for kindergarten. As Christine said, a stunning achievement for Orange County's K-12 education system is the UC-CSU eligibility, which is a good measure of college prep. It reached nearly 56% in the last year that we have data for Orange County high school graduates. We were in the low 30s when we started this report. And since 2009, eligibility has increased by 17.5 percentage points or 46%. And overall, STEM degrees now represent 43% of all degrees conferred in Orange County, up from 41% the previous year. And finally, we wanted to highlight the Orange County Equity Map, a partnership between Advanced OC, the County of Orange, and the Orange County Healthcare Agency. It illustrates the county's social and health disparities with a focus on COVID impacts. It uses a GIS map, and you can do overlays such as the Social Progress Index and the CDC health indicators. We urge you to check it out and also note the similar geographic pattern that we saw in the previous map. So panelists, and of course I'm going to start with you, Christine. Fantastic achievement in terms of college prep in spite of the disruptions caused by the pandemic. What kind of skills will students and younger workers need going forward to be viable in the Orange County labor market and economy?
You know, we really talk about educating the whole child. So that means making sure that they're academically prepared, but also social and emotionally prepared, as well as civically prepared. And so we really want to balance making sure students have opportunities for all 3 of those areas to develop as they go through their preschool through 12th grade education here in Orange County. And it's the things we know: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, character, really important skill sets for students to have to go out into higher education and the business world. Just in order to be successful, you need to focus in on those skills. Having a growth mindset and knowing how to be resilient when adversity faces you are all things that are needed, and our schools are doing a really, really good job at incorporating those skill sets into everyday teaching and learning.
Thank you. And I might ask you one other question before I turn it over to Jeff and Colleen. We saw the US Census data about Orange County being the most diverse in Southern California. What are the kind of opportunities and challenges for the education system in dealing with that diversity? You mentioned how many languages are spoken, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way for us to take on that diversity is embracing it. Having dual immersion programs for families that want their students to learn 2 languages. You know, we're one of the only countries that doesn't require this. And so those opportunities where our schools are starting dual language programs from even transitional kindergarten, even some in preschools, I think that's going to really help our community by making sure that our students are prepared for the workforce that's global, and being fluent in 2 languages is really, really important. So the more work we can do in that area, I think will benefit our community.
Well, great response. Colleen or Jeff, do you want to weigh in on either of those 2 questions?
Sure. You know, for us, I'm happy to say that our industry is defensible from the pandemic. Knock on wood, no pun intended, but we, you know, housing was deemed essential through the pandemic. Our workforces were out there, the construction trades. This is something that we struggle with because we have a lot of those folks that they may not go to college, but don't have a path. And so we have our building industry technology academy in about 25 high schools in Southern California. But we have a lot of stoppages on our projects, which is why a lot of the labor force has moved to other states where there's more consistency in the workflow. Yeah. But yes, that's something that we need to do and bring more awareness to folks.
The opportunities.
Right. Correct.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of jobs available.
Yeah, I know that. I know there's a labor shortage going on in your industry. Colleen, any quick thoughts?
I think about this as a hiring manager or a hiring employer with hundreds of employees living in Orange County, hundreds of roles in Orange County based right there. So we're really working on broadening our pool of candidates with a particular focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, namely a focus on women in non-traditional roles like construction, field ops, service delivery, warehouse. And certainly we spoke about kind of the age, kind of youth, what skills the youth will need in a post-pandemic economy. So, you know, we want to hire people in all stages of their career, but the earlier we get them hired in their career, the better for retaining and developing and keeping them over the course of a career. So I think, you know, for us, we're very much focused on broadening our pool of candidates, and those skills in the STEM area are very important for our industry, which is really technology based.
Great to hear. Great to hear. Okay, so let's move to digital and broadband. COVID, of course, has greatly accelerated the digitization of almost every aspect of our lives, from work to education to entertainment. Obviously, 2 major trends are telehealth and mainstreaming of remote work. Broadband is the infrastructure that enables all of this. For example, Cal Optima telehealth visits skyrocketed during the pandemic. And this is data from just them. This is, in general, a massive movement nationwide. Then we have some surveys about both employers and employees' reasons and motivations for working remote. Obviously, COVID was the major reason in 2020, but just as many respondents cited avoiding traffic. And the pre-pandemic survey shows many of the reasons why workers will continue to want options to work from home or work remotely even after the pandemic ramps down. Overall, the majority of both employers and employees, amazingly, have seen remote work as an overwhelming success. Employees reported a higher proportion of mixed results, though, and that could be due to additional stressors such as increased childcare obligations for children learning at home. And allowing the flexibility needed to manage family matters is rated the highest, with 79% of employees saying it was the best way to improve their work from home productivity. And then finally, the majority, 29% of employees reported wanting to work remotely full-time even after COVID. And significant interest was also placed on hybrid work from home programs, with 2 days per week gaining the highest acceptance at 19%. Only 8% wanted no remote work at all. In other words, the remote work genie is out of the bottle, and a complete return to the pre-pandemic status quo seems unlikely at this point. So Colleen, you are the expert here. In addition to telehealth and education and remote work, what are some of the other use cases that you saw that this accelerated in terms of your provision of broadband services? And then what do you see as the long-term impacts of the mainstreaming of remote work? How is Cox responding, and what are future plans for remote work?
Those are all fascinating questions, and I'm so glad you asked them, because I spend the majority of my time thinking about some of those very things. And I think to answer your question, kind of question in the ether is, will those trends continue? I think my answer, and I'll go on the record as saying absolutely, those trends will continue. We know remote work increases network performance and productivity challenges, and those challenges aren't going away anytime soon. Also, we know the benefits of those trends. Remote work, telehealth, remote learning are undeniable. Increased access to people, for one, your doctor, your boss, your clients, your family. And companies like Cox that are helping customers stay connected while working remote have seen adoption of solutions like cloud computing, for example, and remote security have really taken off, because that mirrors how people are working and learning these days. So I think the pandemic and remote working scenarios have really underlined the importance of the cloud for business, as well as continuity with remote workforces, and as well as seamless online collaboration. I have spent the majority of my time in Teams meetings, right? So that is what, for me, online collaboration looks like. And I think due to the realities of the next normal, which you'll find in the report once you start reading it, folks, more and more organizations are really accelerating towards the cloud, which enables remote work, telehealth, and online education. And many of our Cox Business Cloud customers have experienced 2 years worth of digital transformation in just 2 months as they adopt cloud solutions. We offer like OS 365 with Teams and like desktop as a service and email security to support the remote workers. So I'll say there are 2 themes that we're seeing driving digital growth in the next 12 months. One is right-sizing support for the remote work. So companies will be challenged with funding and right-sizing the appropriate personnel to support remote workforce models, making it important to choose partners with service models that include end user support. So it's not enough just to sell the solution. You have to be able to support the end user, especially if the end user isn't an IT expert sitting in an IT department in a big office building somewhere. The second theme would be demand for acceleration. So there was a Gartner survey recently that showed that 69% of boards that responded said that digital business acceleration is their top priority, which means steady progress really isn't enough anymore, and it may be even considered a competitive disadvantage. So companies will really need to continue to focus on acceleration for a mobile workforce. So while we know remote work isn't going anywhere anytime soon, and I would say, to answer your question, another digital use case that we have seen accelerated and we know will continue is virtual learning. And I think Christine can probably also speak to this. Absolutely. We know that it will likely remain an option, at least at the community college and above levels, and homeschooling has also increased, all of which drives increased bandwidth needs. And these, have come down since schools have gone back in person, but really not to pre-COVID levels. And I think, Wallace, you mentioned this, we're never going to go back to pre-COVID levels, are we? I don't think we're ever going to get back to pre-COVID. There's no going back, there's only going forward. So access is something we've invested billions in, maintaining and upgrading our network, where 100% of our serviceable homes have access to gig speeds. But even more important is adoption. And that's the key difference between access and adoption. Adoption is incredibly important. You need a device, you need literacy, and you need the means to achieve those things. So we partner to provide education on things like our low-income broadband program, Connect to Compete, with the County Office of Education, with nonprofits, with school districts, as well as on information on government funding, like the Emergency Broadband Benefit, Emergency Connectivity Fund, that provide actual dollars for people to get connected. So you can tell this stuff gets my hair on fire, but those are the things that we saw in digital use case scenarios in the past 18 months.
Great, thank you. Hey, before I have Jeff and Christine weigh in, Lauren, could we pull up the poll results, the poll questions? Very interesting. Looks like obviously 94% worked at home. 37% are full-time, still working from home, and 41% are that hybrid model. And 90% said they could meet their work goals. And flexibility, we've heard that from employers. And then mostly unsure, but a lot of no's about planning to return to the full-time to the workplace this year. So great responses. Thank you so much to all our respondents. Jeff, oh, and then finally we have here kind of that hybrid approach, 1 to 2 or 3 to 4 days per year seems to be the most popular. So Jeff and Christine, do you have any thoughts on either the questions I asked or the poll results?
I would say that, as I stated earlier, the major shift in the consumer behavior is something that we're closely looking at. The telecommuting aspects, people Zooming, the remote to work also has transcended over to remote advocacy, which also changes the dynamics as well. And kudos to some of the cities from a remote standpoint, Irvine, Anaheim, Newport, really moved quickly to let us do remote inspections, which was not ideal, but we got it done thanks to them. So I think our industry has been pretty flexible when it comes to that, and I think we'll remain flexible on the design and the construction. But again, when you're marked essential, you get exemptions from that. So I don't think it's fair to say that the pandemic is easy for everybody. It's certainly not. But the telecommuting is something that we're experiencing and trying to capitalize on and make people comfortable in their homes.
Thanks, Jeff. Christine, any quick thoughts before we get to sort of the closing question?
Well, I think the remote work provided some opportunities for us in education to do business differently. I think what we found was kids need to be in school with a teacher face-to-face on a regular basis. And so I think it did show us a little bit about, yes, we can pivot as educators to teach remotely when we need to, but the best place is in our classrooms.
Thanks, great response. So in closing, we only have a couple minutes here. What do you think the report says about Orange County and its response to the COVID pandemic? And also, how are you going to remember the last 18 months, 10, 20, or 30 years from now? And maybe I'll stick with you, Christine, to kick that off.
The report showed me that Orange County is resilient. Most of our schools were in person in some kind of format, hybrid, during this whole entire period, except for the first few weeks we went out because we didn't know what was going on. But besides that, everybody pivoted and really did an amazing job at keeping students engaged and learning. And I think really for the education sector, what it points out is really making sure we stay attuned with students' social, emotional, and mental health needs. And that way their academics can thrive.
Thank you, Christine. How about you, Joe?
Yeah, I think we'll look back and there was a lot of human aspects that won't be in the report that we'll always remember from a health standpoint, from a business standpoint, and on the education side. My wife's a teacher, and having to, as a parent, go online and help with that aspect at home. When you're working from home, you're also working as a parent from home and as a teacher through that pandemic, and realize how difficult and complex that is for a parent to just immerse themselves into education. It shows how valued teachers really are. So I won't end on housing. I'll end on education. But what an amazing, difficult, but life learning ride to go through this pandemic. And thank God for Zoom. It's not the cure, but it was certainly something that we could, if we didn't have it 20 years ago, I don't know what we would have done through that. And that goes for the housing industry as well.
That's a great point, Steph. I'm going to give you the final word, Colleen.
From where I'm sitting and having had a chance to peek at the report a little bit, to me, history has shown, and this indicator report confirms, that Orange County really has the important ingredients for a successful and I think a speedy recovery: a strong economy, robust infrastructure, and leading educational systems. I'm a glass half full kind of person. So I have great curiosity and positivity about what happens tomorrow. And what am I going to remember? I'm going to remember a lot of together time with my immediate family, like a lot of family dinners that I did not have the opportunity to do before because, you know, always being a go, work kind of person. I really have enjoyed that time, but I'm also looking back and realizing how lucky I am to work in an industry and especially in a company that makes it its mission to make real human connections. And that's really what we do. It's not all about data. It's not about TV. It's not about phone or cloud solutions. It's about connecting people. And we have realized in the last 18 months that those connections are really our lifeblood. And Orange County has the best of them.
Well, fantastic. What a great way to end our conversation. Please join me in thanking this excellent panel. I really appreciated all the tremendous ideas and thoughts that and care that you put into your answers. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our Master of Ceremonies, Lucy Dunn.
Great, thank you. And thank you again from all of us at OCBC and all of our collaborators on this report for a fascinating discussion, fascinating report. A few questions, if we've got a couple of minutes here that have come in through the chat. One of them, and also through the Q&A. By the way, if you have questions, populate them in the Q&A link on your screen here. But one question that did come in from the chat was from the Council on Aging. With the growing population of aging in place in Orange County, our demographics on age, where do you prognosticate what we need in jobs and services and other support systems for that growing demographic? Should we not be able to attract more young people into Orange County? Or maybe we have to do both. Your thoughts? Wallace, do you want to start?
I'll kick this off, sure, and then I'd love our panelists to weigh in as well. Yes, I think it's one of the most important issues facing the county. We need to plan for it. It's been called the senior tsunami previously, and I think people are definitely working much longer in their lives, and that kind of to go along with that, because skills are needed to be upgraded. You know, lifelong learning is a really important aspect. Obviously, there are healthcare considerations. We do consume more healthcare as we get older, but I think in general, sort of our elected officials need to set a policy framework that is welcoming and allows seniors to thrive in their lives. And I think Orange County has such a great quality of life. You know, at some point, people said that everybody's going to move once they retire. I don't think many people are moving away from Orange County. I think they're staying here because it's a great place to live. But I'd love to hear from Colleen, Jeff, and Christine about that.
I can comment on the housing aspect of it. You know, we had a really good, viable senior community denied recently in Orange County. And it's consistent with the trends, as I mentioned before, housing projects getting denied. And I understand, you know, people that get upset and yell at the local elected officials, but the long-term, the adverse impacts of that just not only raises the cost. Every time we can't build a unit, it has a trickle-down effect all the way down in all types of housing and shelter. And the baby boom population is aging, and there will not be enough housing for them. And so we are continually pushing it. I would say that senior housing has a little bit more advantage, but not much. We're seeing that gap dissipate quickly. So housing is an issue for our senior population, and cities and the state needs to do something about it.
Absolutely. Colleen or Christine?
And I think from an education perspective, anything we can do to continue to promote career technical education pathways and getting people into professions that support our aging community would be helpful, because then we'll have the resources and supports they might need. And then keeping our kids here locally to work in industries where they've grown up and support their community, I think will help.
Definitely. And Colleen?
Two thoughts about aging in place. One, at Cox, we've done a great deal of work around smart homes For folks that want to age in place, it means living in their homes longer. So they might need more digital assistance to do that. So when I talk about the Internet of Things, you'd be surprised how digitized our lives can become and how that will make it easier to live in our homes longer. So things like, remote locking of the front door, of course, we know about, security systems, remote lights, smart TVs, those are all things that can come easy to mind, but things like remote scales, connected blood pressure monitors, fall monitors, things like that. When you think about safety, when you are living in your home for a longer and longer period of time, there are countless health devices that are connected. And those are all things that travel over the internet. The data travels over the internet. So you need to have a very secure connected connection to the internet. The other thing our company is doing is investing in telehealth. So we are a privately held operation. And so we have invested in Trapala, which is a telehealth company. They're a human-centric, leading end-to-end connected healthcare company that makes those connections between those smart devices and the providers. So those things are really very important. And we know that the population is aging and nobody wants to go live in a community if they feel like they won't get the quality of life that they would have had in their home. So we want to make sure that quality of life as you age in place exists, and we can do a lot in that space.
Great, thank you.
Very good. Great discussion, which caused me to think on the aging aspect. There's a lot of, single family detached homes. I'm thinking a nice 5-bedroom home in Laguna Niguel with one aging woman in it. There's housing opportunities there. And yet, but Jeff says we don't have enough senior housing. She don't want to move out of her house anyway. And yet there's 4 other bedrooms in a house. So it's going to be a very interesting discussion as we come up in the future for creative housing solutions, right? Kind of an interesting dynamic. Plus the state's move to allow more accessory dwelling unit development in people's backyards of larger lot homes. Jeff, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think that's the state is doing something out of the ordinary, which is, they do a lot of overreach on local government, but this is a step in a direction to solve the housing crisis. I don't think it's nowhere near going to solve the issue. And I know a lot of local government doesn't like that being enforced and imposed on them because it disrupts their local general plans and whatnot, not to get too technical, but I think there just needs to be better collaboration with local government and the state. I think that missing collaboration is becoming more complex, and you're going to see the unintended consequences of laws being passed, which the legislature has to, half the bills is repairing what they did the year before. So I think there's just a lot more meaningful discussion needs to happen on housing, period.
Yeah, very good. Well, moving on, got a question here on the continuation of remote work. As we continue on in that, what kinds of jobs or industries will need to grow in order to support a continuous growth in remote work systems? And a corollary to that is the disparity between college education and non-college education in the in that sector. What kind of jobs are we going to provide for those when we're looking at a more and more remote world or a technical computer world in which to do business? Thoughts on that one?
I'll just kick it off, and then obviously Colleen's probably thought deeply about this, but it is a great connection to make that workers who have a college degree much more easily pivoted to remote work. And there are obviously some industries where it's very difficult to think about remote work, like hospitals. And although there's a lot of telehealth, but if you're having surgery, you're most likely not doing that remotely. And OCTA with their coach operators can't do that, at least yet, remotely. I guess at some point could be autonomous buses. But we have to, a lot of this has to do with autonomous and AI, I think, in addition to the connectivity and the support of those that provide connectivity. So I think we have to really look at how defensible our current jobs are, and teach students about the opportunities created by automation and AI and other emerging technologies. Colleen, I'd love to hear what you think on this.
Let's see, I'm trying to boil it down a bit. So when we went to remote work, nearly 100% of our administrative and call center functions went to remote work. That is not to say that the majority of our workforce went to remote work, because at Cox Communications, a lot of the people that do the work that we do needs to be in person. Our field techs, when you have a cable, when you want to get your cable service, somebody generally comes to the home to do that work in person. And so those jobs are very important, are the lifeblood of what we do. So, career technical education is incredibly important. I think that the difference between, say, a 4-year college education and career technical, we have space in our industry for both, and those jobs will both grow. The administrative jobs will likely remain in some kind of hybrid going forward. Some of them may go back to the office. Some of them may retain 100% remote. I think some of our call center functions may remain remote. Those call center functions may or may not require college education. So one of the lovely things about our industry is that we take all comers. We are really highly skilled, but it doesn't necessarily require a 4-year college degree. It does require some kind of career technical education, however. Did that boil it down?
Absolutely. And then finally, Christine, from an educator standpoint, I'm sure you have lots of thoughts about this.
I think it's everything everybody said already. We just need to continue to do our best to make sure that we're staying up to date and integrating as we can, so that we're providing everybody with the best education that they can have, and make sure our educators are equipped to stay up with the changes in technology and the trends we're seeing.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, panel, I thank you very much. Dr. Walrod, awesome as usual. This has been a great conversation and very insightful. I really do commend one of our people in the chat have put in a PBS show on the future of work, a new series on the future of work that I think we should pay attention to, because it's all in line with your conversation. And of course, on OCBC's own webpage, and working with the Department of Ed, Dimensions of Defensibility, Dr. Wallace Walrod's report on those skills that you need to defend your job against a future world of artificial intelligence and beyond. And creativity, which we saw here in great force, is top of the list here. So panelists, thank you. Dr. Walrod, thank you again. Now, folks, I really want you to stay online, grab your sandwich, because we have one more panel of our community leaders from the not-for-profit world, and that I want you to listen to. But first, we're going to take a look at SoCal Gas's video as a major sponsor for this event today. SoCal Gas. Awesome. Thank you so much, SoCal Gas, for your sponsorship and that very informative little infomercial there. All right, next up, last up, the distinct honor is mine to introduce several of Orange County's leading nonprofit executives. to discuss the impacts of the report's findings on their respective fields. First, joining us is Shelley Haas, President and CEO of the Orange County Community Foundation. Shelley's combined the best of nonprofit and corporate worlds for the good of the community for more than 30 years. We also have Sue Parks, President and CEO, Orange County United Way. Improving lives and strengthening the Orange County community through United Way's mission to fight for education, health, housing, and financial stability for every person in Orange County. Also joining us is Kim Gall, who was appointed President and CEO of First 5 Orange County in May 2016, after serving as the Director of Strategy and Operations since 2002. With a wealth of experience and understanding of First 5 operations, Kim is transforming the organization from a funding resource to a data-driven organization that focuses on building a system-wide infrastructure to support early childhood development. And finally, Richard Sanchez, CEO of Cal Optima, works collaboratively with the board of directors of Cal Optima to set that agency's strategic vision and ensure its successful implementation for Orange County's most vulnerable communities in need of health care. He oversees all aspects of the organization and maintains positive working relationships with member, provider, and community representatives, as well as federal, state, and county agencies. If you don't know about Cal Optima, I would ask you to just log on to their website after this webinar and just browse it. It's an amazing, little known, but amazingly innovative program that Orange County has developed for healthcare. So I welcome these fabulous panelists of great leaders and want to just open it up with a great conversation on, within each of your organizations. What really surprised you? What didn't surprise you? What was most impactful from your reading of the report? Let's begin with Shelley Haas, Orange County Community Foundation. Welcome, Shelley.
Thanks, Lucy, and thank you, Wallace, and all the panelists. Just an amazing time to reflect on our growing and evolving county, and such a wealth of information. And I agree with the resiliency. I would say that for me, the most exciting finding of the report that I'm now telling everyone who I come across in my daily life is that diversity indicator from the Census Bureau, that Orange County, we know this, we live here, we love our community, we embrace and celebrate our diversity, and having that data point sort of is like, I consider that a little street cred when we're talking to our friends from LA and neighboring counties. It's finally confirmation statistically of what we know and see in our community, and that our diversity is our greatest strength. And I loved the panelists who continue to reinforce that messaging. And I think with some of the rhetoric and negative connotations and mythology that can sometimes intersect with this space and around immigrant communities, we've been so active in supporting Orange County's immigrant communities, and it just gives me joy to be able to point to that factor as a great strength. And then the other thing I'll note, and we didn't spend a lot of time on it today, but we have in other of these sessions, is about the importance of workforce development in Orange County. I did notice a couple of comments about the community colleges. So Lucy gave her shout out to Cal Optima. I'm gonna save my shout out for the community colleges of Orange County that are doing an amazing job, especially in this middle skills. We've talked about the importance of training beyond high school that doesn't necessarily need a degree, but can unlock the potential for home ownership and for robust quality of life. And so it's been our joy at OCCF to work in that space with community colleges, with nonprofits, and with businesses, many of you on the call today, to explore how we we really accelerate success of especially that sort of older teen and early 20s that might be disconnected from school or really gainful employment that'll provide a sustainable living wage. And lots of opportunity to come in minority-owned small businesses. I loved Wallace talking about reminding us that 96% of Orange County's businesses are small to mid size, and some exciting things happening with Cielo and other partners on the ground, bolstering especially minority-owned small business. So hopefully we'll see more of that in the next report. And I remain optimistic and delighted to be devoting my waking and sleeping hours to building this great county with all of you. So thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. You know, one of my favorite quotes is that Jacqueline Kennedy said, "If you bungle raising your children, it doesn't really matter what else you do in life." I'm kind of paraphrasing. And that's why I'm turning now to Kim Gall from First Five. No one can help us understand the importance of early childhood education than this amazing organization. Kim, your thoughts on these indicators?
Thank you, Lucy. So, you know, I have the fantastic opportunity to focus solely on improving health and educational outcomes for our youngest residents, right? Prenatal through age 5. So when I look at the report and I allow the report to impact our work and really guide our work, where I sit is really in the intersection of all these data points, right? Because we have very young children that live within families, that live within neighborhoods, which live within the county. And again, as all of these individual data points are affecting that family's ability. And I think about that uniquely from the standpoint of how ready are our little ones to be successful in school, right? This is steeped in brain science. My success in this county is rated on how many kids are ready to start kindergarten. That's our summative indicator. And that data exists in the report. And a huge shout out and thank you to our public education system that continues to contribute that data. We are the only county in the nation. So once again, Orange County on the vanguard of leading our nation. But what that data tells us is slightly less than 50% of our kindergartners are actually ready to be successful in school. And what we know is that's not uniquely a parent's job. That's our community's job to serve up that kid. The parents can only do so much. But how is the infrastructure of our county and the communities that we live in investing in early childhood, knowing that so much relies on that child's ability to have those neurodevelopmental pathways established by age 5? So again, I live within the intersection of all this report, and I think about what that tells us. In the last 2 years or so, First Five has been deeply committed to driving some very important data around childcare. And a thank you to Lucy, who wrote a fantastic op-ed, to Dr. Walrod, who has helped us with this research. But when I look at this indicators report, I think about a median income of $95,000. A median home price of just over $1 million. And I think about that typical family of 4 with 2 young children trying to make a house payment. They are immediately priced out of childcare. 2 children, childcare, $26,000 annually. So reflecting on Dr. Walrod's earlier conversation about why we're exiting that middle age group, it's because they can't afford to live here, right? So to complicate your thinking on this matter, the supply and demand of childcare. We've got 21 children, infant to toddlers, against every 1 licensed slot for childcare. So our supply and demand is out of whack. We can't afford it. There isn't enough of it. And some of you, I can probably already hear in your mind are thinking, but there's subsidies for that, right? And there's all this going to be this fantastic investment from the federal and state governments around childcare. Let me put that into our local context. Currently, we only meet the needs of 6% of families that are working and qualify for subsidized childcare.
Wow.
So that's a 94% gap that needs to be filled. I can guarantee you that that federal subsidy isn't going to meet that median income family, and they're not going to close a 94% gap. So when we think about childcare, it's a very complicated issue, right? And then to complicate that issue even more, and specifically to the research that Dr. Walrod did for us, is to really push that up against our economy, right? We talked a lot about housing and productivity of our workforce. We know that 67,000 jobs are lost annually in this county because of the gap in childcare. That means 67,000 people are choosing to walk away from their job or get fired because they can't meet the needs of their child and their job at the same time. And that results in $4.3 billion of lost revenue into our county. So if I don't inspire you through brain development and the first 5 years being the most important, don't inspire you through maybe the visions and anticipation we all have for our children, maybe I can inspire you through education that this is our next crisis. This is a crisis equal to housing, and it's going to affect all of us, whether we're attracting workforce into Orange County or trying to grow our next generation of workforce or maintain what we have. Childcare is just as big of an issue as housing, and it needs to be dealt with. So hopefully I've whet your appetite. There's tons of data on the First Five website. We invite you to help us try and solve this problem as well.
Wow, Kim, that interconnectivity is your sweet spot and reminding us all. Thank you for great insights there. Richard, tell us, Cal Optima, Orange County Health Care. You are a leader in all of this, and you've been particularly watching outcomes in the pandemic. Could you share your insights from on the ground and from your review of the report?
Thank you. And thank you for the shout out, Lucy. And for everybody who does want to look at our website, caloptima.org, and there is a lot of good information there. And for those who don't know my history, I did come directly from the director of healthcare agency position to this position. So I kind of started during the pandemic. And so I've seen kind of both sides, but the good news on that is the step up of our healthcare system here in Orange County. Everything from our community clinics to providers, our doctor offices, our hospitals, all really stepped up during this pandemic period. And the other thing I would add on a global level is hearing the first panel speak about issues that really do impact health. Telehealth was discussed and the impact of what that meant to being able to go to your doctor's office. So, and the concerns that people might have regarding that. As you saw, it skyrocketed. It's here to stay. The community stepped up, the doctor's offices, the internet providers. We still need, I think it was mentioned, is our population needs to have the access points for that. An iPad, an iPhone, the ability to use that and how, but the good news is we've started down that path and we recognize that. Globally, I think the other thing that's happening is recognition of perhaps some health disparities that we should be focusing on. I think the health equity map was shown during the earlier presentation. I'm very interested in that. That has very much an overlay on my population, the Medi-Cal population here in Orange County. And many people are unaware that the Medi-Cal population is fairly large here in Orange County. We were up at our high point just under 900,000 members. So we're one of the biggest health insurers here in the county, if not the biggest. So we definitely have some work to do, but I think the county is definitely leaning in, the community and the health systems are leaning in, and even our business community. You know, to hear Colleen talk about telehealth and making sure that people have those access points and housing and how that's important to a person's health. It was exciting to hear that people, I know a lot of the people on the panels, I don't know everybody, but everybody is talking the same language in recognition of a term I'm going to use, those social determinants of health that the report pointed out. Chronic diseases are an issue. And those social determinants that lead to those chronic diseases and other adverse health outcomes that we should be addressing and looking at. I'm happy to say Orange County is doing that.
Fabulous. So Richard, you know, one of the things we added to this report was a little bit of what do you call it? Like a little block on the Orange County Health Equity Map, which I think Orange County is the first county in the nation to start to drill down by neighborhood. Could you just give us a couple of sentences on that? Because I think folks need to be aware that this is a great resource for them.
It is very informational. I think somebody has actually in the chat has given a link to that. And I encourage people to look at it. It can drill down to zip code. And that's very important because data analytics is part of the approach when we look at an issue here in Orange County. So knowing the issues specific to a zip code is so helpful to me in addressing my population and for the community to know what's going on in our county. And if you look at the map, of course, you would guess the areas of high need are identified in Central County. So there's not a surprise there, but there are pockets that you wouldn't expect maybe in South County. And knowing that, so I know I've given you a couple more sentences than you asked for, but let me close with this. Kudos to Dr. Clayton Chow, our health officer and director of healthcare agency, who started that effort.
That's brilliant, brilliant. Thank you. I really appreciate that, because especially when you start connecting the dots with aging and you learn one zip code has a life expectancy of 85 years of age, but right next door, the life expectancy is 65.
Right.
But with analytics, we can try to figure out why is that when neighborhoods are right next door to each other, we have different life expectancies. So thank you for your leadership in that great work. And I turn now to a goddess of interconnectivity with Sue Parks, between housing and education and workforce and you name it. She has her hands on the pulse of so many of the indicators that we saw today in Dr. Walrod's presentation. Sue, what surprised you? And share some of your insights.
Well, Lucy, wonderful to be with you and everybody on this panel. I've learned a lot, and it's always exhilarating to know so many people care about our amazing community. So I am aligned. I want to just think when I read those things, I always say, okay, as me as an individual, what could I do? So one of the thoughts I had was for everybody out there listening to say, I heard what Jeff said about senior housing being not being allowed into a community. Well, there's opportunities to learn how to be a housing champion, tools that you'll learn how to speak to the city planning areas, city councils, and how do you help be a positive voice in your community. And so we have a housing champions program that helps people understand how to do that and then alerts them to when something's going on in their community. And I know we're going to drop a link into the site, but that's something that we all as citizens here in Orange County, we all believe we need more housing, can be more actively involved in. So those are things that I think that are very actionable. So consider being a housing champion, go to one of the trainings, and it's not difficult. It just will give you the confidence to do it. I like amazing Kim and everything that she's got going on. I think about when children get to school, a lot of children don't have parents that are reading to them or helping them because they're working 3 jobs. And so you can read to students. There are virtual opportunities for you to read to students, read a book on Read Across America and other information. So we'll send some information out on that. And if you want to do one thing is read to a child, and I will tell you, it'll change their life. It'll get them excited in books and help them with learning. And I will say, and I listened to Colleen and everything she was talking about the digital divide, and it was so impactful for so many, but we had an opportunity when we work with the Department of Ed and Christine and her amazing colleagues to learn what was going on with our underserved youth in certain schools and specific school districts around the county. And so last year, we were asked, could we do something about a mentor program? And so through a lot of partnerships with a lot of people and all that, we pulled together 300 mentors for underserved high school students to ensure they graduated. And I was one of those. And I think for anybody out there that listening to understand what was really like in a household that didn't have parents that understood technology when they were trying to do everything on a phone or a small device or fighting over the one piece of technology in a small overcrowded room, 3 families, it's eye-opening and it's a call to action for all of us. So be a mentor. So there'll be other opportunities to be a mentor as well and learn what it's like in some of these communities, because we're all stronger when we work together. So thank you for sharing. I think we'll put information, but they can always learn about these opportunities on our site, unitedwayoc.org. And again, Lucy, amazing job. Dr. Walrod, amazing. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue. Hey, one quick question here. I know we're running a little bit over, but this is so good. And I hate to just like lose you too quickly on this panel. As Orange County transitions demographically and politically, are public-private partnerships still relevant to addressing gaps in social needs? Or do you see public agencies trying to take them over? Where, you know, we in Orange County, it's, you know, we don't have a downtown, we don't have a political center. How do we do a leadership of collaboration for us to succeed on so many of these areas? Shelley, you want to try and tackle that one?
Well, at least I will say, I think it's essential. All of these issues are so interconnected. Government can't solve them alone, but the private sector cannot solve. I think one of our, frankly, our disadvantages in Orange County has been this sort of arm's length of the private sector not wanting to work collaboratively, not sometimes even our elected leadership not wanting to accept public resources that are you know, would do great benefit to our community. And so I would, anybody on this, in this group, on this call, who sees opportunities to look at other counties where there are stronger alliances, we have them in subsets and sectors, but there really is no broad, you know, collaborative sort of regional countywide effort that's looking at business, philanthropy, and government and how they could align. So I will just say I would be all in and endorse how crucial that is.
Excellent. Anyone else want to weigh in on that one?
I'll just say, and again, there's so many opportunities to do more, to do better and all that, but I look at United 10 Homelessness and I look at Lucy, you're on in business, and Richard, you're on from Cal Optima, and Kim, you're on for early childhood, and Shelley, you're on. I mean, but we have the CEO of the county, there are the housing authorities are on, and trying to get everybody around one specific topic that's so important to humanity, but so important in terms of for taxpayers and for all the right reasons. That's something that we can solve together. I'm absolutely convinced that we can solve this together in Orange County, and we can be the leading community in the country in terms of paving the way. One of the things that just happened through all these rescue programs is more vouchers coming into the community for our homeless than ever before. Astounding numbers, like over 1,000 new vouchers that have come in. And I know Richard is working with parts of that to make sure the supportive case management is there. We need apartments. And again, they're guaranteed rent, you know, through HUD and all that other stuff, but there's other ways that people can get involved in that, but it's another link we'll send. But those are opportunities because the government's given a certain amount of like leeway to say, here's 1,000 more vouchers. Let's house 1,000 more, let's end homelessness for 1,000 more individuals or households in Orange County. And there's different parts that aren't complete, and all of us can get together and say, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this better than any other part in the country. And Orange County can do that.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much. You know, what I particularly love, Sue, is again, connecting the dots for folks. You heard earlier, Jeff Monahano talk about, you know, every city in Orange County right now is trying to get an updated housing element approved, which is the planning document for ultimately then approving more housing in every community. And every community is fighting with folks that just don't want change and don't want newcomers and don't want new housing. And so connecting the dots to using the tools that United Way is doing for all of us to stand up and say, did you hear Shelley say, our diversity is our strength, and having newcomers is a strength here for Orange County and our competitive advantage to others. So everything is connected, right? The economy, our child's health and well-being, childcare, and our housing, it's all connected. So any last inspirational thoughts anyone has to share with this group before we wrap it up? A piece of advice or encouragement? I'm so inspired by Sue, and now I'm looking for anyone else to share.
I'm just going to share my favorite quote, Lucy, if you don't mind. If anyone has ever heard Father Greg Boyle of Homeboy Industries, he always references this, and I think it's always in my heart. It's a quote from Mother Teresa, who said, if we have no peace, it's because we've forgotten that we belong to each other. And to me, that is the perfect reason to care about all these issues and their interconnectivity, and that we belong to one another in Orange County, in our state, in our country, in the world. And it's a privilege to get to lift one another with all of you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Shelley. Richard, your closing thoughts?
Yes, I would like to just jump on what Sue was talking about with, there are several fronts where private and public are getting together. Be Well OC is a big one. If you're not familiar with that, look at the website. Mental health, everybody's in the healthcare system. The other one is what Sue mentioned on permanent supportive housing for people that need that kind of help. We work collaboratively with American Family Housing, Jamboree Housing, other housing builders to build the units, and then we staff them to provide those supportive services for long-term care of individuals who need that. So it is happening, and I just think it's going to happen even more.
That's brilliant. And our children. Kim, last inspiring thought from you?
Yeah, just a reinforcement of what you've heard from all the other panelists. The only way out of this is if we all contribute to the solutions. Find something you're passionate about, lean in and get involved. There are a tremendous amount of examples of government, philanthropy, and businesses work together. Let's continue that long shared history and drive it forward.
Excellent. That's a great way to end this conversation. And thank you all for your wonderful leadership. The partnership opportunities for all of us inspired to continue to lift all of us in Orange County. The links are all now in the chat. We're going to send out the link also for the community indicators is in the chat. And we'll also send it out by email as well. So once again, thank you, great panelists. Thank you, Dr. Walrod. Thank you, first panel of experts. We really appreciate your time and sharing your time with us during this midday hour. And last note, Cal State Fullerton and Orange County Business Council have an economic forecast conference coming up on Wednesday, October the 20th. Look for the information on that to attend. But in the meantime, be well, be healthy, get vaccinated, do your vaccination so we can get out of this pandemic. And all of you, thank you very much as well for joining us today. Bye for now.